You are listening to a Slaffterhouse production. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Josh vs. Josh, the show where we pit two friends, both named Josh, against each other so they could talk about a movie they like or dislike. I am your moderator, Wilson T. Kirk, and as always, I'm joined by
Josh Duclos
and
Josh Weitzel.
And today we are talking about 2016's Free Fire. Let's just go ahead and get things started by talking about where you stand on the movie, Ducky.
I am not a fan of this movie, at all. I think it is. I mean, it's easily the worst film I've seen this year, and I just there's nothing interesting about it. No good acting. The action is really dull. The cinematography is just all looks like one color. It's slow. It's boring, and it just ends with nothing interesting happening at all throughout the entire movie. I was so disappointed in this movie because I was really looking forward to it. But it only holds out to be a good trailer, not a good movie.
All right. How about you, Josh? How do you feel about what he just said?
I think Free Fire is fine. It's not like I don't think it's any kind of masterpiece or anything like that. But it's definitely fun to watch in the theater. It's a good time. I mean, I'm not here, gonna say that it's the best thing since The Godfather or anything like that. But yeah, I don't really think there's anything overwhelmingly wrong with this movie. It's just a fun movie to go catch with your buddies on the weekend, that kind of thing. Nothing. It's not trying to be super deep or anything like that. It's just kind of there for fun. It doesn't really take itself too seriously. I think that's just why it was just fun to watch.
Oh yes, of course. For me personally, I'm just gonna say it is probably one of my favorite films of the year. I know I'm not in this battle, but I just have to say that I had more fun in that theater than I have in pretty much any theater this year, besides Triple X3. But we don't need to talk about that one. Since last week we did District 9. So how about we just talk about Charlton Copley for a second, since we did talk about him quite a bit last week. So how did you feel about him in this movie?
I remember saying last week that he's made a great career out of giving great performances in really bad movies, and this just continues that streak that he has of really bad movies but being pretty good in it. Even then, the movie kind of swallows him up a little bit because it's just so not well made at all. So it's kind of he's giving a fine performance, but it's totally getting swallowed up by this really terrible movie.
Okay. How about you, Josh?
I think he's fine. I wasn't blown away or anything, but I definitely got a kick out of his performance. I do agree that he has made a career out of giving great performances in generally weak movies, with a few exceptions, I guess. But I thought he was fine in this. It's really funny, full of energy, interesting character. Yeah, I thought it was fine. I don't really have a ton to say about him.
Okay. Well, how about we just go with what did you like most about the film? I mean, what was the one thing that really kind of drove it home for you to say, hey, this was an okay movie. This was fun. Josh, obviously, not Ducky.
I think for me, just I really admire filmmakers who can make a compelling movie that's set in a single location.
Yes.
And I mean, it's usually pretty tricky to pull off. And in the case of Free Fire, I think they did a pretty good job with keeping everything contained in one place. And one thing I really liked is how, you know, I guess, I mean, I don't really know much about shootouts in real life or anything like that. I've never been in a shootout, thankfully. But just the idea where, everyone's just kind of like laying there waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
Um, that seems much more authentic than like, in something like John Wick, where it's supposed to be like, this really high octane action where, he just is like dodging bullets and, you know, playing all sort of like kung fu moves on people. And this just felt so authentic in the fact that it's just like a bunch of, idiots just in a warehouse, where this, everything goes south and they start shooting each other. And I sort of like those moments where there's not a lot going on and everyone's just kind of like waiting for the next thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, something always does happen. And I thought just the fact that it felt maybe just a little bit more authentic than most action movies, just because it, no one was really like, except I guess like the only exception being like Armie Hammer's character looked like he really knew what he was doing. And everyone else was just sort of like, no one else really knew what the hell was going on. And I really sort of like that authenticity of it. I don't actually know how authentic it actually is because I've never been in a shootout. But, given how most other movies are with that kind of, that sort of scene, the fact that they dragged it all out into a full movie,
Yeah.
with a lot of really silly characters, I thought it was great. I thought it was fun.
Well,
I really like the way that they handle that.
yeah, of course. Well, I'm gonna just say that if we do want to know what being in a real shootout's like, we should ask Charlton Copley, because when I went and saw this film, he did a Q&A afterwards, and he was talking about the time where he was in a bank that got held up and there was a shootout. So that he'd be one that actually does know.
Damn.
Yeah. But besides that, Ducky, obviously you not a fan. What's really keeping you from it? Like, what's the one thing that just is like, this is a no-go?
He was mentioning that how this film isn't like John Wick, where there's not the awesome action scenes going on, which is, the
like
film
John Wick.
shouldn't be that. But he was
No.
talking about, when they're not doing that, there's, character development or something like that. That's where the movie lost me, where there wasn't any action going on. The movie was literally doing nothing. There was barely characters talking to each other. There's barely any development of any kind, and every character stays the same from the start of the film to the end of the film, and there's just no interesting arc for any character. Whatever twist they had at the end, I saw them coming a mile away because their hints were just a little too strong. Like, who's like on there's a third party that comes in the middle of this film, and the twist is ruined by one of the characters. He's kind of shot in the head, so he's kind of concussed. He starts screaming out a character's name, like, "Where are you?" It's like, well, now we know they work together.
Yeah, they're supposed to be that way.
I mean, it was supposed to be obvious. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
then why is it a twist at the very final minute? Should we give out the spoiler?
Yeah.
When
matter.
the Brie Larson character shoots the two remaining, the Armie Hammer and Cillian Murphy character. And then they're supposed to be like, "Oh, you're on their side." It's like, "Oh, sorry, this and that." It's like, well, it was so obvious from the get-go. Why couldn't that have happened earlier in the film then? Saved for the very last minute.
Why do you always want twists to come earlier in the movie?
Well, because if it happens at the
very
very
hung out.
end of the film and then the movie just ends, it just doesn't really mean anything to me. It doesn't really affect the characters in any way, shape, or form, and there's no development. It's kind of like how I don't like it when... Like, I like it when characters learn their lesson at the end of the second act, and then the third act is the result of learning the lesson, or like having the character's arc complete. With this, it's just like you get the twist / like the arc of a film at the very last minute, and there's nothing afterwards to happen, so it doesn't mean anything. There's some few exceptions, like something like Inception, where that's a twist. Well, that's more like not a twist in that the characters know that's if you want to decide if he's awake or not. So like it has nothing to do with the character, so that works for me. With this one, it's like it's a character literally saying that, "Oh, I've been against all of you guys the entire time." And it's like it would have been funny if the Shalto was there and Armie Hammer was there and Murphy was there to see that betrayal and how they would react to it. Like maybe they all three joined together to go against her or something like that. It just seemed like because she gets wounded like near the beginning of the fight, so she's kind of wounded the entire time, and she just doesn't really play a part in this fight as much as like if she like had come out, she was against them all at the start. I mean, like halfway through the fight, it would have been far more interesting in my opinion than her just waiting until everyone was wounded to the point they couldn't fight back. Then she does it, and then she's just arrested a minute later. It's like, oh, okay. Like,
all right. Well, Josh, what do you think about what he just said about the twist not being important, not adding to the characters?
I think in this particular instance, I didn't come to this movie to see character development. I didn't come to see anything deep or meaningful or profound. I just came to see a bunch of idiots shoot each other in a warehouse.
Yeah, understandable.
I didn't I'm not going into this with some sort of like higher expectation. Like you watch the trailer and you know exactly what it is. You know exactly what it's going to be. You know what you're getting into. And I think, if you're looking for some sort of deeper meaning in things, I mean, I don't like you shouldn't be expecting to find that in this kind of movie. Like I really I was excited to go see it just because, most of the time like dumb action movies don't really appeal to me. Like I'm not going to go and watch Transformers because those are just like
amazing.
Those like massive like budgeted effects movies are just there's too much going on and it's just nonsensical, and I don't even give a shit about like the actual story. You know what I mean? I don't really give a shit about the action. I don't give a shit about anything that's actually happening. But something like this where it's like that you're gonna get like a bunch of idiots in like a in a room together, and everyone's sort of plays like a goofy little trope. Everyone has their own little trope that they play, and they're all gonna try and kill each other. Like that's just like that going into this movie, and it doesn't really pretend to be anything else, and it doesn't take itself too seriously at all. And I think those are the best kind of movies like
I
this.
disagree with that, where it says take itself too seriously. Like, the argument that starts the whole fight is about an argument about this guy saying, oh, well, this guy was trying to get my sister to suck his dick, and she wouldn't, so he bottled her. Why is the argument that kicks off this whole thing such a serious argument? Like, I think it would have been so much better if it was like, oh, this drunk guy last night walked on my yard and crapped on my yard, and that's why the whole, I want him to apologize for that. I think that would have been so much better than this like deep, serious sexual assault story.
Because that's too stupid.
But that's what would make it so much better.
No. Here's the thing. You're not supposed to like that guy.
Well, I don't think you're supposed to like any of these characters.
No. But like what the guy did, I don't remember his name. The one guy who's an asshole from the start. You're not supposed to like that guy. You want to fucking hate him. You want to see him get his goddamn comeuppance at the end of the story. And something has to kick it off. But if you're just like, hey, you crapped on my lawn, like that's too watered down.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And maybe that's way too watered down. Like there's no way, it's that's just the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Well, I think it's so fuck? Like seriously, it's like for 10 minutes you're watching this like really serious argument about this like somewhat sexual assault violence towards this woman, between these two characters that are just really annoying, and then you just watch them argue for 10 minutes. I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be fun. This is actually really dark and kind of disturbing. And then you end up hating both sides of the argument, and they're the ones that start the whole fight. And then it's like you don't mind if they die, and then they just kind of get shot kind of near the beginning, especially the one that bottled the girl, and he's just kind of yelling, just kind of shooting randomly. It's not an interesting fight or interesting action or an argument. It's just like it's kind of dark, and I just think it kind of like that's where I think the film took itself too seriously, especially in that beginning, where I just think it should have been a really stupid argument that set it off, and you just realize these are the dumbest people, and now they all have M16s in their hand. It's
well,
like,
there have to be some stakes. It's not just someone crapped on my lawn. It's someone like,
But I feel like
it's got to be heavier than that. No, it
doesn't
really
need,
does.
The stakes itself don't have to be big. It has to be big for the characters. And if they took this way too seriously, like the other characters are saying, "Hey, that you cannot crap on someone's lawn and not apologize," and then the other side's like, "Well, if he just crapped on his lawn, it's no big deal. It's like if a dog did it." And then the other guy go, "Well, if a dog did that, I would have shot that dog." And it's just like it keeps escalating and escalating. And I think that would have been so much better.
That's the exact thing that you want to happen. I mean, it's not. The movie's not like an outright comedy, though.
Well, that's what I kind of thought. It was going to be like an action comedy from the trailers, and like that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess it was just the trailer that was that film. Because then now you watch this film, you're like, oh, well, this guy tried to get my sister to suck his dick, and then he hit her over the head with a bottle. It's like, oh my god, that's kind of intense. And then it just keeps like escalating to like it gets more dramatic in that argument. And I just feel like if you had a really stupid, like I don't want to say lighthearted, but like really stupid, non-intense argument that starts off the fight, it would just add to these characters are stupid, and now they have guns in their hand.
But then it would have to be an outright comedy.
Because in the line,
then it would have to be an outright comedy.
Well, what's wrong with it being an outright comedy then? With a gunfight.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it being an outright comedy, but that's not what it is.
This is definitely
it's a little more serious than that.
Yeah, I mean, this film is definitely more of a darker comedy than anything. I mean, there are these like major themes that are happening. These people are in a situation they don't want to be, and I mean, it's definitely a tragic situation that leads to a lot of dark humor.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm going with. I feel like the film takes itself too serious.
I don't think it takes itself that serious.
Really? I mean, with it being tragic a situation, it having kind of like sexual assault in it, it's just, I don't know. It's just like, it kind of like, it makes the argument where it's like, well, yeah, that one guy that started this whole thing is kind of a dick. He should get shot, and no one else should get shot, really. And then literally everyone else is shooting each other. I guess that goes to the whole tragic thing of it. But I just think it would be funnier if it was a dumb argument and everyone got involved in it, and then like there would be like one character, like I said earlier, like, oh, if a dog shot shit on my lawn, I would have shot that dog. The one character's like, what's wrong with you? How could you shoot a dog? And then they can get an argument, and then another two characters can get an argument, and then like it could build to these like, it's kind of like it's like one group versus one group, but it kind of becomes one versus one. So there'll be stronger character development, stronger stakes. There'd be an arc to each. There'd be like 4 different arcs, but there'd be 4 different one versus ones. And I just think that'd be so much more interesting if it was. Then it just was one versus one character, and all these other characters got involved in it. And it just, and since there's no character like arguments between each character, there's just nothing keeping me interested in this movie when it's not
other than them trying to stay alive.
Well, I mean, they're not interesting characters, so why do I care if they live or not? I thought, like, how I saw from the trailer, these are just supposed to be, like, body bags for shootouts. And since they didn't add any character development for them, there's no arc, there's no stakes with any of these characters except for the 2 characters that started off. What's the point of watching them fight? Just for them to get out, see which one gets the money? I mean, I guess.
Pretty much. But
that's just not interesting, though. If it was,
I was interested.
I mean, I don't know why. I mean, this film tried to be so hard, tried so hard to be like Reservoir Dogs, but even then, Reservoir Dogs actually had character development for each character and an arc for each character, and it was actually interesting to see who was against them all. I mean, it's like it has all like the same ingredients as Reservoir Dogs, but it does not have the same cook. So it has no interesting aspects to it.
Reservoir Dogs is totally different. I mean, there's definitely some similarities, but like the purpose of this movie is to watch a bunch of people shoot each other in a fucking warehouse. That's like the extent of it. That's like the long and short of it. Reservoir Dogs, it's been a while since I've seen it, but even though it does end in violence in a warehouse, there's so much more other things going on. They actually
That's what makes it a
like,
better movie.
I'm saying like they do develop characters, and the purpose is to develop some of those characters, and the purpose is to tell a larger story. But this isn't trying to do that. It's not trying to give all their characters arcs. It's literally just like, hey, remember that like last scene in Reservoir Dogs where they all shot each other? What if we just did that and spread that over the course of like an hour and a half?
Well,
That's the sense that I get from this.
The films don't work that way, though.
I feel this is a little more than that as well, though. You can't just say that. That kind of defeats the movie in itself. This movie definitely has more than just, hey, remember that last scene? Like, and this movie does have a lot of character building, in its own way. I mean, we don't know anything about these characters. First off, at the beginning, we learn a lot about Brie and Armie. Charlotte Copley's character.
Well, everything we learned from Brie is a lie, though.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
but
the movie.
It when you learn you get all this character development for a character, and then the character comes out, well, no, actually, everything I said is a lie. Then you don't learn anything about that character.
You learn that she's a liar.
Well,
but you still give a shit about her until that point.
Yeah, you're still.
Why?
And then you realize that everything you knew about her, and then
you're not supposed to like her at the end. So let her lie to you this entire movie, so you become invested in a lie. That's development as far as I'm concerned.
That is kind of like literally you're told that she's lying near the beginning of the fight, though. With the character who's shot in the head comes out. I forget the character's name, but he yells at her name. He's like, where are you?
That's about halfway through the movie.
I guess.
And what we find out in that scene is that someone hired the people that are outside, not her in particular. We find out that these people that are outside were hired by someone.
When I saw this moment when he's yelling at her name, is like, oh, he hired those people. Because I remember from the trailers that third party, and that she's part of it. That's what I got from it. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I for one thought it was him and one of the other guys. I did not know that she was involved until the end. Personally,
I mean, I just like, why else would he call her name though? I mean, yes, she's very attractive and all that, but like they don't say a single word to each other before the shootout, and then during the firefight, he's calling out her name. It's like, of course they work together then. I don't know. It's just like it was too on the nose that moment, so it totally spoiled the twist at the end of the film. And then since the twist happens at the very end of the film, and that we learn that one character has been lying this whole entire time, we basically lose all that arc and that development. And then the twist happens, and then there's no none of the characters react to it because they're all dead by this point. And so it's just like it's not interesting, and like the twist didn't change the movie at all. She still gets arrested at the end. It might have worked if she was working with the cops at the end. And she's the one that gets out at the end. But no, by her face, like she totally gets arrested. And she totally goes to jail. Or she gets shot by the cops. Who knows? But since there's no other character that we've been watching this entire time react to it, except for one character who's literally been shot, so he's dying as he reacts to it, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the course of the film. Doesn't develop the film. You can't watch the film again and go, oh, this totally puts a whole new layer on it. It totally doesn't add anything to it. It's like they're like, well, there was something of a twist. Like, we have to do something. And so they just do that. And it just doesn't change anything.
Anything to say about that, Josh?
Not the twist is fine. It wasn't like earth-shattering. Didn't change how I viewed the movie.
But don't you want a twist to be earth-shattering, though?
Not for this kind of movie.
Like, what's the point of a twist if not to shatter your perception
if I'm gonna watch
of the movie?
If I want to watch a movie that I know is gonna have a twist, I'll go watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
I wouldn't.
I'll go watch something kind of weird and unusual, and knowing that something's up, and then you find out at the end that
Okay,
He was
okay. Here's a
well,
good
it was dead the
example
whole
of a
time.
twist. Not that's
But
it's
but
earth shattering or M Night Shyamalan level. Like Up in the Air had a great twist when you find
bro,
out
that she was married.
that she was married, she had kids. It's one of
Yeah.
those where like it totally changes the course of the movie. The characters react to it, especially the main character of the movie is shattered by this. And then when you have another phone call with that character, you realize that the other character is kind of like self-absorbed, like how she's okay that I know that I'm married and that we can still have sex. It's kind of like, did I know this person at all? And it totally causes a huge shift for the character, where he totally changes his outlook.
But
that's
talking,
what makes it interesting.
Okay,
it's not that it happened. Can you imagine if that movie, you see that twist and the movie just ends? It's kind of like, well, what was the point of the twist?
The difference is, you're talking about, okay, granted, it's been like forever since I've seen Up in the Air. But you're talking about like a character study drama versus Free Fire.
Well,
They're
I feel
two
like
completely different movies.
if you're gonna have a
And,
character development film with a twist, you got to have development, and there's got to be a twist. It's just because it has dumb action in it doesn't mean you can't say, well, it's a dumb action movie,
No,
so
but
the
I'm
twist
saying
isn't that good. It's okay. It's
I
like
feel
with
like I've
John
said
Wick,
this
it's a
1,000
dumb
times.
action movie, but it actually has an
It's not a
arc.
dumb action movie. It's a very smart action movie.
Well, okay, it's an action
It's
movie
a very
nonetheless, but
smart
it actually
action
has
movie.
an arc, and you actually feel for the villains in some sort of way. You actually care about John Wick succeeding.
Right, but even so, John Wick is a different movie from Free Fire.
Of course, but just because
They're, like,
you can go.
okay, there's a big difference between a twist like the one in Up in the Air, where you find out, like, because when you watch that movie, you're supposed to see Clooney's reaction because it's about Clooney. It's his character, and no one gets, brutally murdered or anything like that. It's not a violent story. When you watch something like Free Fire, you expect that kind of shit.
Yeah.
You expect there to be like, oh yeah, like we brought snipers, and who brought the snipers? And like you watch that in the trailer, and you're like, oh, who did bring the snipers? I wonder who it could have been. And then you're like, oh, it's pretty obvious that Brie Larson brought the snipers, whatever. And then she tells him like, oh, I brought the snipers, and they're just like, oh shit, and then they get killed. And I'm not like, wow, that was a really shitty fucking twist. It was just like, I feel like I've said this a million times, like I'm not super concerned with this movie when it comes to character development. I mean, I'm just here to go watch a bunch of people shoot each other in a warehouse, and that's like the long and short of it.
But
I think you might be overthinking this movie a little bit. I really do.
I mean, but it's not really fair to him to just say, "Hey, this movie's not supposed to be good, so why isn't it good?" Like, can you go into more depth into why, like, he's going too far into depth?
I mean, how I see it, it's kind of like you look at a movie like Flash Gordon, where it's campy, it's over the top, it's a ripoff of Star Wars, but you still love the characters, and there's still an arc, and there's still you can still get invested in these characters and the action.
Sure.
And it's like Flash Gordon is Broadway Joe goes to space. That's what Flash Gordon is. NFL superstar goes to space, saves the day.
Yeah, saves the world. But there's still an arc, and there's still development, and you're still interested in these characters, and you want them to succeed. Free Fire's got none of that.
I've never seen that.
I mean, I highly recommend it.
I've never seen Flash Gordon. I don't have any sort of frame of reference for that.
It's kind of like, I guess, like Evil Dead 2, where you still are invested in Ash. You still want him to succeed. And yes, you're just there to see gore and like cool effects, but there's still like a character at the middle of it all that you can care for and that you like.
I agree that movies with the intent of being silly or campy can have larger character moments. But even from watching the trailer, I never got the sense that that's what they were trying to do. I never got the sense that, they were like, yeah, if they had it, that would have been a nice surprise, and I probably would have liked the movie more than I already did. But that might just be, you'd have a whole conversation about expectations when walking into a movie.
What
But
did you expect when you, let's just say when you watched the trailer? What did you go in thinking this movie was going to be?
I
Just
expected a bunch of people to walk into a warehouse and them to start shooting each other and to watch that for like 90 minutes, and that's pretty much what I got.
okay.
Would I have, like, sure, like having a character, stronger character arcs, for everyone would have been nice, but that wasn't like not having that wasn't like a deal breaker for me. It pretty much met my expectations. It didn't really exceed them. It didn't, or nothing like that. I pretty much I got what I paid for, you know, and that might just me just being content with watching something like Free Fire and saying like, yeah, that was fun. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. I certainly won't remember it 5 years from now. But it's the kind of movie that shows up on Netflix that you watch, when you're like bored or something like that. And you don't expect it to be like a masterpiece. You don't expect it to, say anything profound. You just kind of expect it to be just like a campy, maybe not campy. You just expect it to be like an action movie, And I think that, movies, better action movies like John Wick, you go and see that movie and I went into that, hearing that it's like an amazing action movie, and I'm like, well, I don't really. It looks like a kind of by the numbers Hitman movie, and then you go and watch it, and you're like, holy shit! Like, there's the writing is really strong. They do a lot of showing and not telling, and it's like generally good filmmaking, and that surprised me. And
Wouldn't it have been great if
that
Free
sort
Fire
of
had
that
good
it sort
filmmaking?
of what?
Like, why is it okay that Free Fire didn't have good filmmaking? Then?
No, I'm saying that Free Fire met my expectations. John Wick exceeded them. If we're gonna compare the two briefly.
But I feel
briefly.
like that's
In
a
broad
down on
strokes.
Free Fire then, because don't you want a movie to exceed your expectations? Because
yeah,
with John
but
Wick, I thought it was gonna be by the numbers action movie too, and like holy crap, like just from the first minute of the movie, you're like, wow, this is not gonna just be a straight to the numbers dumb action movie. With Free Fire, you get like a kind of a cool song at the beginning, and you have these characters talking to each other, and you're like, wow, these characters are stupid. They're mean to each other for no reason. I guess that's kind of setting up, well, that could easily start a firefight then.
Yeah.
But if it's not interesting argument, it's not interesting banter, it's not interesting insults, because we don't know these characters at all. And then the character goes, oh, I know this character. And it's like, I mean, I guess they don't have to explain that. But, they don't have to have exposition for that relationship. But when you watch these characters interact, you're just like, I don't get their relationship at all. They just hate each other for whatever reason. Like, that's not interesting to me. Like, I just like, just because it's a movie where there's people shooting each other in a dumb in a warehouse, and they're dumb characters, that doesn't mean you can't have backstory, you can't have development, doesn't mean you can't have arcs. And just because, like, oh, well, there's people shooting each other, well, the action isn't interesting, except for a few moments where they start shooting propane tanks and they start using fire. That's when it gets a little interesting. But when there's like I think Martin Scorsese said this once. I might be paraphrasing what he said. He said like there's a difference between plot and story. Plot is what happens in the movie. Story is why it matters. And this film has plot, yes, but this film has no story. It doesn't mean anything. Like none of the actions add to anything. It's just they just shoot each other the entire movie, except for the first 20 minutes where they're arguing about something that doesn't mean anything except for two characters. And all the other characters are just bystanders to it. And if every character had some sort of stake in this fight, they had a reason to fight, it would be far more interesting, and it would have added to the fun of the movie, I think. Except for all we have is these two great, like, there's four amazing actors in this movie. You have Brie Larson, who literally just won an Oscar. We have Murphy, who's just been a great actor who's kind of been overlooked for years now. And you have Slaffterhouse and Armie, who are good, fun, over-the-top actors who are like, Slaffterhouse is great in bad movies. Armie was, in my opinion, the very underrated Lone Ranger movie. And he's fun in that. and he's playing the overtop tough guy, but all they're doing is just reacting to what's happening. They're not driving the movie, and they have no stake in the movie, and no arc in the movie. They just kind of all die at the end for no reason. And I think just to say it's like, oh, it's an action movie in the warehouse, like you can still have all that. You can still have all good filmmaking in it.
Sure.
And this film just has none of it.
I think that I do agree that they could have done more with the characters. They could have done more with the actual story. But I still don't feel like I needed that. I feel like I don't know what else I could say other than I'm like content with this movie. Like again, like it doesn't not every movie like this that I see needs to shatter my expectations or go above and beyond. Just watching like the trailers, like if I had to watch the trailer, going back to the John Wick comparison, like if I had to go watch the John Wick trailer versus this, and I hadn't seen the full movies, I probably would have gone to see Free Fire instead.
I would agree.
Just because it looks much sillier and everything like that, even though John Wick is a much better movie.
Way better movie.
But I'm just not I don't know. I mean, I'm just not. I wasn't disappointed by this.
Well,
I don't believe that every single movie must shatter my expectations. I certainly hope that it does, and I definitely prefer it when it does, and I certainly don't want to go below my expectations, because that's when you have a bad film. But I mean, for the most part, it met my expectations. It did. I went to go see a bunch of people kill each other in a warehouse. That's what I got. I wasn't expecting it to be anything intelligent or insightful or filled with, fascinating characters, because it just wasn't. And I'm okay with that. I feel comfortable saying that I went and saw a movie that by most people would be considered mediocre. If I had to be like really intensely critical about this movie, a little bit more objective, I would probably say it's just a pretty mediocre movie. But I was still laughing throughout the movie. I was still invested in what was going on. And I was enjoying enjoying myself while I was watching it. And I walked out of the movie and I was like, you know what, that was pretty fun. It was pretty stupid, but it was pretty fun. And to me, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not, if I'm, during Oscar season is when, I expect, the movies I have higher expectations for what comes out around then. And I expect them to be filled with, lots of character depth and development and a fascinating story and truly good filmmaking. But for something like this, it's just supposed to be like, springtime blockbuster kind of thing. No, maybe not blockbuster is not the right word, but you know what I mean? It pretty much did what I wanted it to. And I had fun watching it, even though I will admit it's not the best movie. I'm not going to remember it in 5 years.
Or tomorrow.
But it's, I still had a good time with it. And that's really all I needed to have with it, I had fun watching it.
I think it's fine to have just a dumb action movie, but then the action's not interesting, though. I don't remember a single moment that was not in the trailer in this movie. Like there's a cool moment where Armie Hammer has like a crowbar. He's about to hit a guy over the head with it. But then a giant propane tank flies at him and it hits them both and they both fly away. That's a cool moment.
I will admit the action was a little lackluster for what I was expecting, but not enough to keep me hating the movie. They definitely could have done more.
But there's no interesting set pieces. There's no interesting climaxes to the little action scenes. It's just kind of like this kind of keeps building to the final moments that don't mean anything to me. And like I said, that's the propane tank is a cool scene, but it was in the trailer, and that's the moment where I'm like, okay, I want to see this movie now. When I saw the trailer, But also another good moment in the trailer where the guy goes, I forgot what side I'm on, which is funny in the trailer. But then it happens in the movie. It happens literally like 5 minutes into the scene. To the firefight. The guy doesn't have a gun. He doesn't accidentally shoot one of his own members. And it just kind of is thrown in there for no reason. It would have been so much funnier if one character was going to kill another character. And then that guy says, I don't remember whose side I'm on. Shoots his friend that was going to kill the other guy. And he goes, why are you helping the other team now? And then the guy goes, well, I forgot what side I'm on. That would have been so much better than it just being kind of thrown in there for no reason. Where it just that's why I just say if you're going to, I would just suggest to watch the trailer and then you can imagine the good movie that this should have been. Because the trailer's well done. It has a cool song in it that's not in the movie. And all the movie just uses one John Denver song that doesn't quite work in my opinion. I think it was John Denver. I don't remember for sure though. But
that sounds
okay.
Right.
And it just I don't know. It's just like there's no cool style to it. There was no interesting ideas in the action scenes. Every once in a while there's a cool idea like the propane thing, or when the guy gets in the van and he dies, but his foot's still in the pedal, so still runs over a guy's head that shot the guy. But and even then, it's just like, why do I care about it though? Because there's just no story to it. There's plot but no story. And there are some cool action movies with no story. Yes, that is true. But at least the action's really awesome. And I guess you can have the dumb action movie, or you can have like a Paul Verhoeven movie, like a Total Recall or Starship Troopers, where you can watch the movie as a dumb action flick. But if you watch the movie again, you go, holy crap, there's actual social satire in this movie. There's actual there's arcs. There's actual meaning to the film. Like when you watch Starship Troopers again, you realize, oh, this entire movie was a propaganda film. And those little intermissions where it's like, would you like to know more? Like you're watching a movie with commercials in between the film that takes place in this world, and they're not all real characters. You can have that and still have a dumb action movie. And I think just because the film doesn't have that, but it is a dumb action movie, that's what makes it okay. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. I personally, with this film, I see it more as it's a small stakes action movie. It's more of a deadpan wit. Armie Hammer's deadpan throughout this entire movie is amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. He's great.
And it's kind of feels like if the Marx Brothers or Charlie Chaplin's hey, I want to do a shootout movie. That's what this is. It's physical comedy at its best. It's not supposed to be this fun action movie. It's just a dumb physical comedy, dark humor, deadpan, amazing conglomerate of different tropes and personalities. Yes, there isn't as much character building as most would like. I thought the characters were built perfectly. I thought that we literally just had our characters. They didn't need to grow. We knew who everyone was at the end. They're the same person as at the beginning, besides Brie, obviously. And I actually Copley as well. He kind of had the most arc of any of them. He loved his suit at the beginning. At the end, it was tore up, but he's like, whatever, I'm still living, until he wasn't.
Okay, I do like the idea that his arc was his suit. But yeah, that was kind of funny.
It's an amazing movie. That is just a deadpan, fun, small stakes romp. It's just a small world within this greater world. There's 1,000 warehouses in the city. Every one of them could have these weird shootouts going on inside of them. That's the world that we're living in. And that's what's fun about this movie. Is it's not an apocalypse action Hollywood shoot 'em up movie.
But
you just want it to be something more.
Yeah, and I think it's that's
why. But does it have to be? Does it have to be something more?
Yeah,
Why? Why does it have to be something more?
Because film to me is an art. It's not just a piece of entertainment. And when a film just thinks itself as a piece of entertainment, doesn't try to make the audience think in any way. John Wick is a fun action movie, but you can actually still have your thinking cap on when you watch that movie. You can still get something more out of it. With Free Fire, it doesn't do anything well. It doesn't take itself serious.
Okay.
Like, I mean, like, okay, it does take itself serious. I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. It's just that when it took itself serious from beginning of the film, I expected a serious movie, like an actual movie. But when it just kind of boils down to dumb action all of a sudden, it just kind of like, what was the point of that first 20 minutes with no shootout?
Okay.
It tried to build up to the action scene, but when it's just two characters arguing about each other and all the other characters reacting, it doesn't mean anything to me. And then when the action happens, it's not interesting action. Like I said, I don't remember a single action scene outside of what was in the trailer. And then when the characters are the same all throughout the film,
Okay, wait.
it was like,
wait,
what was
wait.
the point?
I feel like you're just repeating yourself.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I want to know. Go back to what you said before about art and entertainment.
Well, it's like
And
it.
yeah, go back to that.
I think
Talk more about
film
that.
is just is way better than just being a piece of entertainment. Like, if this film just wanted to be a piece of well, I mean, I don't know. Like, you can have to me, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's not an art house movie. That's an entertainment movie.
Okay.
But it has high
Sure.
stakes.
It's also not that good.
That is the oh my god,
That's bullshit.
what just happened here? Are we gonna have a different?
Okay, no.
Go ahead, continue.
Keep going.
Okay,
Ducky.
the film still has high stakes.
Mhm.
It still has great characters, great character development. I remember, there are so many memorable action scenes in that movie, and it's paced wonderfully, has brilliant music, and it's like a B serial movie. And then it could still be a good film where you watch it and go like, that's intelligent filmmaking, that's great acting,
I agree.
that's great editing, that's great music. And just to say, well, it's a dumb movie, so it doesn't have to have any of that. It's like, well, Raiders is a dumb movie, and it has all that. Even the sequels are still way
But
better,
see, I wouldn't
fun
say that-
entertainment pieces than this one. Even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I would not say that Raiders is a dumb movie. I'd say it's a very smart movie because it is well made. I mean, I'm not saying it. I don't think it's the best movie ever made, but it's. I mean, definitely one of my favorite action movies. But I think just the idea of calling a movie either smart or dumb. I mean, it's a very, very, very well made movie. It's exceptionally well made, and I think it's one of the Steven Spielberg's finest films, especially from his his earlier works. I don't know how you could call that a dumb movie. I think it's a very well. I mean, you might be talking about the plot or the story, or when you write it down on paper.
It's dumb.
But there's more to it than just that. It's not that dumb.
Well, that's where
'Cause
it's
you
like
just said
plot
yourself
is
that-
what happens in a movie. Story is why it
Right, but
matters. Story in Raiders, like the plot in Raiders, is kind of dumb. It's a B serial. Any
Just
franchise can do this. But the
you just
story
praise
it has an amazing story.
you just praise the movie on like every single level,
Yeah,
and then you call it a dumb movie
because it knows
because
exactly
it
what
has-
it is. It is total
because it has a
tonal
simplistic
control.
plot.
Free
It's
Fire
not a-
didn't have any tone control. Where the first 20 minutes, there's no jokes, there's just insults, and then there's a serious argument about, oh, this guy literally sexually assaulted my sister.
There's the
I want to
first.
go back for a second to you. No, seriously, going back to you calling Raiders a dumb movie when just
The
seconds
plot
before
is dumb.
all you. Okay,
What?
so is that so because you think the plot is dumb? Is that the only because
No,
of
okay.
just one thing you're gonna call it a dumb movie?
Free Fire
Even though it has
has good
everything
plot.
else.
I'll get
No,
like
I'm
it
not
actually
talking
has
about-
like
I'm talking about
it
Raiders of the Lost Ark
builds
for a
and all that.
I'm
But
talking
the
about Raiders of the Lost
story
Ark.
is crap.
Ducky, I'm talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark for a second.
Yeah.
You're seriously gonna sit there and tell me that Raiders of the Lost Ark is a dumb movie
It has a dumb
only because one aspect of it, which is the plot, is dumb. Even though everything else about it, in terms of characters, cinematography, editing, music, acting, everything else is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think really well
Because
done.
it
You're
knows
gonna-
what it is.
dumb.
It has total tone control. It's like the same thing in Flash Gordon. That's a dumb movie. But oh my God, is it such a well-made film? Because it knows exactly what it is. You look at Transformers. That's a dumb movie not because it knows what it is. It's because it takes itself way too serious. Like in an interview, Michael Bay was like, yeah, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. It's like Ben-Hur mixed with Apocalypse Now. It's like, what? What are you talking about?
Might have been. I have not seen that movie, but it's possible that he was referring just to story and not quality of the actual movie.
Well, the story is not that either. It's like he doesn't know.
I haven't actually seen that either.
Michael Bay, like he can make exciting stuff.
Well, you should watch Flash Gordon, maybe.
Yeah, that too.
I want to. I will. I'll
definitely watch Flash Gordon. But with Michael Bay, is that he can create exciting set pieces, cool action scenes.
There's a reason Bayhem is a thing.
That is very true. But he never knows when not to use it. Like he can do it during a really cool action scene. Or you can do it during a comedy moment.
Yeah.
There's like I can't remember what film he directed, but at the end of it, it has like Ed Harris by a river, and a really nice house looking over like Miami. He goes, "Oh, it's just the little things in life that count." It's like, but then why do you have like a massive mansion by a beach that probably costs millions of dollars? It's like he never knows when not to do it. So it's always big, it's always over the top, it's always loud, and if it's always big, over the top, and loud. Nothing's big and over the top and loud. Right. And with Raiders, Spielberg knows exactly when to do it. The cinematography is perfect. Like knows exactly how to do that. Same with the music. It knows what it is, and it's total tone control. It's fun. Yeah, it's exciting.
It's a very smart movie.
Dumb. It's a B movie.
No, it's not
serial.
dumb.
It doesn't take itself serious at all. There's literally a moment. It was after Indy and Miriam get on the boat, and you think they've won. And there's a moment where she's looking at a mirror. He's on the other side. Indy's at the other side of the mirror. It's a dual side mirror, so they're both like looking at a reflection of each other. And she doesn't like how she looks, so she flips it, and it totally hits Indy in the face. And it cuts to out of the ship, and he does this huge yelp.
Yes,
like that's a dumb serial movie moment, right?
But
it works so well.
Confused by what you're saying. Because you're praising the shit out of this amazing movie on every single level, and then you can have this blanket statement that it's dumb, and I don't understand that.
I'm kind of with Ducky on this one, because you can
look. I agree that the plot is kind of dumb, but everything else about the movie is incredibly well done, and because of that, I think it's a pretty smart movie.
I agree with Ducky on this one. Because it is very true. There are these amazing B movies that are out there. A lot of the schlock horror, and that's what he's trying to say in a few more words. I would say it should not be what is praised of it, because it is just a B movie that's done extremely well. It knows what it is. It's funny at times. It's exciting at times, but it's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. And when Spielberg made the movie, they didn't go, well, this is a art house picture. Mm-hmm. Because no, this is an action movie.
No, I get
action.
That, yeah.
That's what he's saying. It's an action movie.
See, Travis, the way you phrased it makes much more sense.
Yeah. And then with Free Fire,
what the fuck Ducky was talking about.
And then with Free Fire, they're like, oh, this is supposed to be a dumb action movie. Then why is there such a serious argument that starts off the thing?
One thing to point on that is it is set in the 70s. Where the sexual assault is kind of more of a humorous moment, because they keep calling it bottling.
That's true.
It's set in the 70s where it's more of it's horrible. Don't get me wrong, but it was more of a reality, especially in the world that they live in, with the seedy bar world. Mm-hmm. They're street thugs. These guys were hired to be there. They weren't even part of these crews. They were just hired to be muscle at these gigs. The guy who was beat up at the beginning of the movie, he knew nobody else except for the one dude that just got him in there. And then he meets up with the guy that beat his ass the night before, which is hilarious. There's a lot of darker humor at the beginning of the movie, which I feel for you probably went. I don't want to say it like that because it sounds bad, but it went a little over your head.
Maybe
like you saw it as more of a serious moment to where it was meant to just be. It was meant to be a deadpan, more of a British dry humor.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. I don't know.
And
but...
dark. I mean, that's what dark comedy is all about, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
I
taking these
love
more
dark
serious
humor.
moments.
It's
and
uncomfortable more than funny.
Like, I like
Yeah.
that humor. And that, like, how I look at comedy is if no one's getting hurt, it's not funny. That's why I hate a lot of stupid, like, American comedies, because they don't do that. Everyone's fine. No one's getting emotionally or physically hurt. So it's not funny.
No,
So-
I agree. Yeah, American
But
comedies
this film,
are not.
it's like we don't know the characters. It's kind of like with The Hangover is a good example of this, where the first film, it's gross stuff happening to these characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just gross stuff happening. Because it's happening to these characters and they react to it, that's what makes it funny. With Free Fire, it's just happening. It's not happening to characters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why it went over my head. Because, like, I can't... Like, a lot of comedies, like, I will watch a comedy, you won't see me laugh, and I'll come out saying, oh, that's a funny movie. It's because I get really sucked into the drama of comedy films, especially good comedy films. And just because I'm not laughing, that doesn't mean I don't think it's funny. With this, though, there's, like, no setup, there's no characters, so the gross stuff and the mean stuff doesn't land for me. It's like with extras. You have a main character who's just trying to, make it big, but he just keeps getting setback after setback. 90% is his fault.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't realize it's his own fault. And that's what makes it funny, is that how obliviously stupid he is,
Yeah.
of how mean he's being. With these characters, they know they're being mean. They know they're, like, when the guy goes, he's like, oh, I'll apologize. And that I didn't, like, beat her up more or something. I don't remember the line is in the movie. Like, he knows he's being mean.
Yeah.
It's like, if he didn't know he was being mean, like, if he was standing his ground on a, like, principle level, they thought, like, he had every, he's like, oh, she didn't suck my dick, so of course I had a bottle her or something like that. Would have probably worked better for me. Because, like, these characters they know exactly what they're doing. They're not oblivious to anything.
If he, like, even though he was a dumb character, he still knew what he was doing when he did it.
Yeah.
Um,
He still knows that he's being
yeah. If
mean
he was
and
more
gross.
oblivious to the fact that he's a horrible person, it would be funnier for you.
Yes.
Again, I feel that kind of falls more into an American style humor, though. Like Family Guy, it's funny because he does horrible things, but he's just too stupid to know it. And obviously, humor is objective because I brought up Family Guy.
Yeah.
But there are funny moments in that show in whatever the 13 years or whatever they've been doing it. But obviously, the movie was great at the beginning. I really liked the setup of what was going on. And then the characters, you don't need the growth that you would need from a more of an art house film. This was a schlocky, dark comedy that's meant to be schlocky and dark. And I for one, really loved it. I know both of you are mediocre at best towards it.
No, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
But would you ever watch it again, though?
Definitely didn't hate it. What?
Would you ever watch it again, though?
Probably not.
I mean,
I
it's
still
not a
liked
good
it.
movie, in my opinion.
I still enjoyed it.
I feel a second viewing might do you better.
Okay, it might do me better, but even then, I don't see it doing it at all, though. But I mean, I'll give it another shot for you guys, but I would never on my own.
Well,
watch
when it hits
again.
DVD, we're gonna, or Blu-ray, whatever we buy nowadays, we will look into picking that one up.
Please do that.
And I think we're getting pretty close to the end on this one. So how about we just give some final thoughts about the film, and give me a number like I like to do. How about you, Josh, first? Either one. You're both Josh.
You go first.
I mean, I think it's a dumb movie that took itself too serious. It doesn't add to anything. It's not good filmmaking, which is like, if you're going to do a dumb movie, it has to have good filmmaking to actually matter, like Raiders. So, to me, this movie's like a 2 out of 10 at best. Just because of Shoto and Armie are fun in the movie. And that's just more because I like them outside the movie more than I do in the movie.
2, that's crazy.
Yeah, that one's a little harsh for me as well. But
See, I would save 2 for something like 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, I would give that
I
like
would
a
give
1.
50 Shades
or
like maybe a 3 or 4.
No.
I give 50 a 4. 50 Shades Darker now, that's a 2. Cuz that's the exact same movie but with less sex. So
Oh, damn.
yeah, it's horrible. Don't even get me started.
Oh, man.
But Josh, your number and your final thoughts on this film.
I would probably give it maybe like a 7 out of 10. Just because I did enjoy myself while I was watching the movie. I had a good time. I know it's not, it's not The Godfather or anything like that. It's not Reservoir Dogs or, what. It's not like gonna defy the genre or anything like that. But I went in, expecting to see a kind of a dumb, shocky action movie. And that's exactly what I got. And I can't, be pissed off at it for giving me exactly what I expected it to be. Like, could it have done more? Like, yeah, sure, why not? Could have been filled with more character development and more actual story. Yeah, sure. But it doesn't. I'm still not mad about it. So yeah, I thought it was fine. That was fine. I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
All right, awesome. Well, that's gonna do it for us for this week. We are planning some new movies. I know Neon Demon's coming up, so if you want to know what we're talking about, go ahead and go and see that one. If you want, that one's a very polarizing movie for a lot of people. So that one should be a fun conversation for us to have. And also, we still want you to tell us what you want to see. We want to know how you feel about this. We want to hear from you. So hit us up on Facebook, of Mice and Max Facebook page, or Twitter @of Mice and Max if you want to hit us up on there, or go to www.ofmiceandmax.com and read our stuff. I believe you can find all of our social links there. You can find an email address to just hit us up. But that's going to do it for me, Wilson T. Kirk, and
Josh Too Close,
and
Josh Weitzel.
And thank you for listening. We'll talk to you later.